Hey, how's it going, everyone? Justin again. As always, thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back. Make sure you smash the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel so you can be notified when we post our next video. You can do so by hitting the notification bell. Really fast, really easy, and I promise you it's absolutely free. Tonight's discussion is going to be about time management. As a mechanic, it can be very difficult to manage your time wisely, especially when you're first starting out, because you have a few things that are not really in your favor right in the beginning. One of them is just going to be knowing the product line, and it's even harder to do that when you're at an independent shop than it is a dealership. You can actually learn the product line a lot faster than you can working at an independent shop where you're pretty much working on any and all different years, makes, models, etc. But if you are working at a dealership specifically, you're going to be able to pick that up a little bit faster, and that's going to help you when it comes to time management, because now you're able to produce more hours based on repeat repairs. So as you get used to doing a repair over and over, you get projectively faster at it. You might have had to read how to do it the first time or two, but after that you should be able to just take it apart and put it back together without ever having to go and look up the component location or how it comes apart or what the torque specs are. In some cases you might get so good at taking that one thing apart you don't even need torque specs anymore because you have them all memorized for the most part. Another thing that you really don't have in your favor in the beginning is just going to be the educational background. Okay, even if some of you went to community college or you had a little bit of automotive shop in high school, to have enough years in the industry takes time. In the beginning, even with what little time that you had in the high school automotive program or even in community college, if you went there, it's still not a lot of time. So knowing what it is that you're looking for when you have a battery draw issue or a charging system issue or a starting issue or a fuel management issue, knowing the direction to go, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you in the first stages because you don't have enough time in the trade to know exactly what to go for right away. Once you start getting used to a flow or a pattern of how you decide to start tackling your diagnosis, you will get more proficient, which then you will have more time to go on to the next job. You won't spend as much time trying to figure out the issue at hand as you did in the beginning. So in the beginning you're going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out one issue, but later on you should be able to actually figure it out a lot faster because you're used to testing certain things and you already have created a series of steps that's going to make you more efficient, right? So education is definitely going to help you out there. I mean, you can educate yourself more and more at home. Of course, we have YouTube University. Plenty of guys out there that know how to diagnose, and you'll be able to learn a lot from them if that's your thing. If it's repairing vehicles and actually taking something apart and putting it together. If you don't seem to be able to gravitate towards reading, maybe try and see if you can't look up the way that somebody else took something apart and put it back together, and then that might give you a faster approach too, especially if you're a DIY and you're trying to switch over and actually go work for a shop. You DIYs have a little bit more of an advantage because you have time on your side. You're not working for somebody that's time sensitive. They're not pushing you to try to produce, so you can allot yourself more time in the beginning. Whereas when you go work for a shop, they're going to give you a little bit of leeway your first month or two, but then after that you'd better start producing. And if you don't, then you might find yourself without a job. This isn't in all cases, okay? Independent shops are going to be a little bit more lenient towards the overall amount of time it takes for you to work on a specific job, and they're more understanding that when something bad happens as a result of doing a repair, they understand that things happen, right? And as those things happen, it could drag out that time frame and you getting it done quicker. But you'll learn, and as you learn from that, then the next time, hopefully you already know the issues that could potentially happen leading up to that. Now this is where it comes in with experience. So once you've been on the job for a little while, how you can actually narrow that time management gap to give yourself more time to work on other cars is going to be knowing what all is involved parts-wise before you actually put in your request for parts. So if you're doing a head gasket job, obviously the parts department is well aware that you're going to need at least a head gasket set, right? And in that set they assume that you're going to have most of the gaskets that you need for that particular job. Things they might not take into consideration for that job is going to be things like plenum gaskets, radiator hose clamps, maybe something had broke along the way like a fastener or a clip or something like that that you need to reorder. Or maybe there's a hose that disintegrated, so now you need X amount of hose to replace because these things you're already aware ahead of time could potentially fail leading up to it. So when you go to that next head job after doing it once, twice, 3 times, and you've seen the different things that are just repeat issues with that particular manufacturer. Take Ford, for example. We all know that their vacuum hoses, the little plastic tubes that go across on these mid to late 90s, they break, right? And then you have to replace that with some rubber hose and try to reconnect the whole thing and make sure it goes back. Their rubber hoses, especially going back towards their fuel tank, usually disintegrate. They're rubbery. Your hands turn into like pitch black as if you were cleaning out a fireplace, okay? It's pretty nasty, but you already know ahead of time that these are the things that can happen and that you're gonna have to replace that. So letting your manager know or letting your parts department know of certain things that you're already well aware of that are gonna be in lieu or on top of the current parts list that they've already set aside for you is gonna help you with time management, because now you're not having to go in and say, hey, you gave me the head gasket set, but I need these many clamps, I need this much hose, there was this gasket that I don't have in the kit that I need you to order. Oh, and by the way, this one component broke and I need to have you see how much price and availability is for that component. Now that component might take a few days to get, so now your time management, it was not spent wisely, and now that car might end up sitting for another couple days waiting for that part to come in. Okay, so how can you be more efficient in the beginning when it comes to time management? Some shops like to distribute all the ROs right up front. Other shops like to do this onesie twosie thing where they just kind of give you one and then they interrupt you mid-job and then they give you another one. And then other shops will have a designated box where they'll just drop all your work in the box for the day, and then it's up to you to knock out what you can in a given period of time. And they usually kind of put the ROs of importance ahead of the ones that are least important. Okay, so one of the ways that I was able to manage my time like at the dealership. So if I already knew I had a heavy line job that I was on and I was waiting for a particular component to show up and I already had my work for the day already spaced out in my cubby, what I would do is while I was waiting for that certain component to come in, if it was not in yet, I would jump over and I would do the oil change. And as I was draining the oil and doing my inspection, if that component came in, I would go grab the component, set it over by that car, come back to the oil change, finish it up, and then go around for the block for my test drive and park it. Then I would bring the PDI that I had and I would bring it in and I would go ahead and start the PDI process. And as I was waiting for the nitrogen fill to do its thing, and that takes a few minutes, right? It could take 15 to 20 minutes. Instead of standing there and staring at it, I could go back over to their job and start putting a few components on. So that's one way that I was able to manage my time with different projects throughout the day. There was another time where I had 2 airbag recalls, I had a PDI, and then I had this steering dampener. I only had 2 bays, so I was trying to bang one out over the other. I'd pull the steering dampener behind the PDI so that way I can change out the steering dampener, all while I was still trying to do the oil change service. I can jump back over to the heavy line job and get back to work on it. It is a very fast-paced environment at the dealership, okay? It's not that fast-paced over at the independent shop. They're usually pretty good about just sticking you on one project and letting you kind of run with it unless there's a routine service that comes in which case you might get pulled aside to do a quick belt or to do a quick oil change or to pressure test something for the cooling system to see if it's leaking and where it's from. And then all while this is going on, you're just working on the one. So you're really only bouncing from one back to the main job. So time management over at the independent shop is a lot more doable and there's not as much pressure, which makes it a very likable place to work. One of the other benefits about learning how to manage your time more efficiently as a mechanic is going to be obviously pay. When it comes to the dealership, like we had previously discussed in past videos, depending on what your state wages are, you could potentially make more money if you're able to exceed your hours in a given work week, and then you can hit those commissional bonus brackets. At the independent shop, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to produce the hours based on how much work is actually coming in. And the types of work that usually do come in is not necessarily always for you. It's not always widely spread throughout the shop. Usually they have designations. So you have one guy that's like your front end guy, which is doing steering, suspension, brakes, alignments, etc. You might have a heavy line guy, myself, that's doing like engine pulls, transmission pulls, transfer cases, maybe cylinder head jobs, things like that. And then you might have a diag guy, and the diag guy's job is pretty much just diagnose the car, do some smogs, take care of the front office, manage various customers that are coming in and out, and he's usually the one dealing with money more than anything else. But as a result, he's not afraid to come out and then bang out some small work, which can help produce hours for the shop. So the overall idea at the independent shop, when you're in a designated position, is to just try to produce as much hours as you possibly can as a team. Over at the dealership, you still want to produce as much hours as you possibly can for the team, but it's mostly an individual basis because that's how you're looked at. You might get pulled into the office because you were lagging in hours one week, but you killed it the next week, and you might get actually praised for that. Dealerships kind of have a lot going on though. They've got the service department, they've got their parts department, they've got their sales department, and then they've got their detail department, right? So they have all these different avenues where they can make and generate an income. So more times than not, you're actually gonna make more money at the dealership level than you would the independent shop. The independent shop, you're pretty much just there with your service work. There's nothing really in addition to, unless they have something else kind of going on the side, like flipping cars or whatever that they decide to get you involved in. And then maybe you can make a few extra bucks on that if you're willing to pull in some extra hours on the weekend. The biggest takeaway from this whole entire video is to just try to get as much work done as you possibly can in a given work week and hope to maximize the amount of your physical labor for the maximum dollar amount that you could potentially get. So if in a given work week you're able to produce 20 hours, then your goal should be to try to produce maybe 25 and then maybe 30. I understand that you have no control over the amount of hours that you actually can do in a work week in some situations because it depends on traffic, right? Customer flow, how many customers are coming in and how many jobs can you possibly get out. And a lot of that is determined on parts hold, how long is it gonna take for you to get parts in. A lot of that's gonna have to do with skill set, specialty tools, first in, first out, right? So whoever comes in first, you wanna try to get them out first. Some situations you have to put them on the back burner because there's a longer hold for their part. There's a lot of juggling around. But there are certain jobs that can come in that you can actually jump to. And I've tried to make this argument a few times with shop management that if there's a stack of work that we actually have that we need to get accomplished and completed within a given work week, so long as I know what jobs that they want me to do or I'm allowed to do, and I have them kind of set to the side, I can go over there, and while I'm waiting, instead of waiting for somebody else to tell me what it is that I can do next, I can go grab the next RO and I can go ahead and start doing work on that. Instead of just standing around. Standing around is not going to be very efficient for you. It's not going to make you as much money as you possibly can in that given work week, and it's not going to make the shop that much money. So try to be as proactive as you possibly can. If you do find yourself standing there with no work, try to just stand in front of the guy that has the work and try to get the work. You need something to do? Yes, absolutely. I need something to do. Let's move on. Let's keep the ball rolling, right? I'm in the groove. I'm ready to go on to the next job. Sometimes you have to wait for him to get off the phone. That's just the way that it goes. If you guys have helpful ideas for those that are just starting out as mechanics, please feel free to put them down in the comments and let us know how you manage your time best. What works well for you? What has worked out well for you? How many hours were you able to produce using that system compared to the hours that you were producing not using the system that you decided to put into play? I guess I just want to know what actually helps you guys to produce more hours and manage your time more efficiently as a mechanic. So feel free to let me know down in the comments. I'd appreciate it. Make sure you smash a thumbs up on the way out the door. I appreciate you. Thanks as always for watching my channel. We'll see you guys next video. Cheers and deuces.